Coming up on today's episode of Parasport Nation, we go on guard with Paralympic wheelchair fencer Trinity Lowthian. She shares her experience in Paris, as well as the road ahead for her athletics and academics. Let's get started.
Welcome to Parasport Nation with Alex Smythe and Nathan Clement.
Welcome into Parasport Nation. I'm your host, Alex Smythe, as always, joined by co-host Nathan Clement. Nathan, are you ready to go on guard today? We got a fencer. You know how I like to do a bit of sword action on these types of things.
I'm ready to parry all your comments, puns, and jokes. So let's get on guard and let's get into this episode.
Okay, well, let's start things off before we bring in Trinity, because there's a lot to get to with the conversation with her. There was a bit of interesting news that kind of came across our desk. It came out while you were away, but we wanted to wait for you to be back on the program to get your reaction, because I think it is crucial to have the athlete's perspective. So Can Fund, which for those who don't know, is a program to help support athletes on the national level. They released this fascinating little image, and it just highlighted what the average annual take-home salary are for different athletes in the different winter sports. So I have a few of the numbers here. Let's go through them one by one. Para hockey, they listed at $9,922 a year. Para alpine, $4,291 a year. This one caught my attention. Wheelchair curling, $517 for the entire year. Para Nordic, $4,407. And then for reference, the highest quoted one on the list, which also include able-bodied Olympic sports, figure skating, $27,032 annually. Now, this is all before Can Fund gets involved. This is the money that the athletes are making outside of these types of supports. What stands out to you about this, Nathan? Because this was eye-opening for me.
The biggest thing that stands out for me is just the financial burden so many athletes have to go through on a yearly basis. As first off, being an athlete is the greatest privilege, greatest honor of a lifetime. But when you're balancing work, training, and life to be a representative of your country, of your sport, of who you are, what athletes are being paid, it's not fair, it's not right. And this Can Fund document really shows out blaring issues with the Canadian sports system, with the finance and funding. And I have to be fully transparent. I am a Can Fund recipient, earning my Can Fund money back right before the Paris Paralympic Games. And just that support really helped me at that time. But for so many athletes, Can Fund is a necessary resource just so they're able to keep the lights on in their apartment, in their place, being able to provide food and being able to just get by on the day-to-day, as so many sports also have team fees. I'm not going to call out certain NSOs right now, but a lot of them are charging upwards of $10,000 per sport just for the athlete to be on that team. And that's not even going into the cost of sporting equipment. And especially as Paralympic athletes or para-athletes, adaptive equipment adds such a added kind of burden for so many, where we get to unfortunately see the numbers that are present with like these Can Fund documents, but there's a lot of work being done to change that. And the people with Can Fund, Jane Roos, Conrad, are incredible people who are really trying to help athletes get the connections so they can find sponsors, that they can find partners, and as well as just be in the community and really make a difference. But for you, Alex, what was the big glaring thing that you saw reading these documents?
Well, when you look at all the para sports, none of them listed are topping $10,000. The wheelchair curling one at $517 annually. I think that is just shocking. It's ridiculous. It's like to suggest anyone could potentially have that as your take home pay is just shocking. I think when you kind of look into that sport specifically, I think demographics do play a role in it. You have a lot of the older athletes are competing in wheelchair curling, so maybe they're retired, they're not actually in the workforce outside of the sports, so that could play a role with it. And you mentioned, the can fund supports. Well, even on their own website, it's a maximum up to $16,000 a year. And if you have other kind of fees, like you mentioned, with some teams offering up or asking for up to $10,000 a year, that money very quickly evaporates. And then it's the housing, because part of the challenge is, especially for certain sports, I think of Para-Nordic. You got to be based in Canmore. Well, Canmore is not exactly a cheap place to live and work and be. So there's all these different challenges that the athletes are facing and struggle. There are some ways that things are being improved upon. Like you look at the medal compensation that came into effect within the last Paralympics. But the challenge with that is those medal compensations from the government are still taxable. So it's a step forward, but it's only a half step. It's not that full step that you expect at this point in time for athletes, for the parasport movement. So you want to see that improved upon. You want to see that built upon. But as you mentioned, there are some people who are taking that step, who are working to push the movement and the financial supports forward.
Yeah, there's so many people who are making that difference right now. One person that comes to mind who really pushed the medal compensation forward is Sanjay Malavia and the Malavia Foundation. And I've gotten to know Sanjay now for several years, and just the kindness of his heart, his dedication and willingness to help and support Paralympic athletes, because before Paris, we didn't receive any funding or any medal earnings. And that's just a discrepancy when you have Olympic athletes making that and Paralympic athletes not making that. But you have people like him who are really taking those steps forward, and so many other athletes of the past really trying to make a difference in the community, really trying to bring sport forward. And even with our guest today, Trinity Lowthian, and the work that she's doing right now in school to take a look at the financial impacts of sport and really make that difference so herself and other athletes won't have those burdens in the future.
Yeah, well, you set it up perfectly, Nathan. So why don't we bring in Trinity for our conversation all about sport, academics, and so much more. Here's our interview with Trinity Lowthian. Trinity, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much. I've been looking forward to it.
So let's get started with how you got into your sport of wheelchair fencing. I've always found it very fascinating, but what attracted you to that sport?
For me, it was a pretty calculated decision where growing up playing able-bodied sports, I always liked the niche sports that were maybe not the most popular here in Canada. I played water polo and also did biathlon. And so then when parasport became an opportunity, I definitely knew that I wanted to go to the Paralympics, and I thought that, what's a sport that not many people in Canada do that might make it a bit of an easier path there with less competition in the country itself? So I did my research and saw that, hey, wheelchair fencing's not that popular and it seems like fun, so why not try it out? And it ended up being a perfect fit.
Trinity, thank you so much for joining us. You've competed in the saber and épée, and just recently in South Korea, you placed in the top 10 overall at the World Championships there with a 5th overall in the season standings. What was the season like for you, and how was the World Championships in Korea?
The season for me was definitely very slow. I would consider it almost like the entire season was an off season. After Paris, I took some time away from the sport, and this season I only competed twice, and once was at World Championships. So it was a pretty quiet, more low-key season, I'd say. I had one World Cup in Brazil, and that was in February, where I won bronze, and then did some pretty light training, did not really ramp it up much over the summer before heading to Worlds, where there I finished 9th.
Well, and you mentioned Paris as well, and your fifth place finish in Paris was the greatest result ever for a Canadian in the sport. Like, what did that finish mean to you, and how did you feel coming off of that competition?
It really meant a lot to me, and I think really spoke to the dedication that not only I put into it, but also my coach and the amazing fencing community in my city in Ottawa. We really worked very hard for it, and with not having a ton of resources for wheelchair fencing in Canada, we had to go and train abroad in France, and just doing that and seeing that it was worth it and that the results came out of it and followed was such a great feeling for me.
You mentioned that you're having to go to France for training. How is it for you being the only athlete in your classification in Canada? I know I'm in that same situation with my category and my sport, but how do you improve your skills with local competitors or in Canada?
It's really tough, especially so right now at the club, I mostly train with competitive able-bodied fencers and they sit down to fence me. However, based on classifications, they all have trunk control and abs and I don't. So no matter how hard they try to fence in a chair, it's never going to replicate my competitors. And so it's a really good opportunity for me to learn some things and try some things, but it's definitely not comparable to going into competition. And so I find that having opportunities abroad to train with people in my category, because it is an offensive sport where you do need to use those tactics, and it's not something that I can train only on my own forever. So it's important for me to get those opportunities with others in my same classification who are also fencing at a very competitive level.
Now, I had a little bit of a history with fencing, anything close to the wealth of experience that you've had, but I always enjoyed saber, just getting that quick action, the whoever can get that sword down and strike first, you're normally getting the point. But you mix between épée and saber, two very different styles. Is there one specific classification or sword that you prefer to fence with?
Épée, 100% all the way. I only train in épée, and so in the Paralympics for me competing in saber, I actually ended up qualifying in saber, and so then also did épée, but for me in Paris, saber was the event that came first, so it was kind of like the dress rehearsal for my actual event, so I was able to enjoy it, figure out the ropes, so that during my épée event, which I had trained for and really feel like that's more my bread and butter, I was able to only focus on épée on that day.
Going back to Paris, can you talk about the experience of being at the games, but also for the wheelchair fencers, they had probably one of the most beautiful venues at the games, but in all of sport. What was that like being there in Paris?
First of all, it was such a dream come true. I was that kid who was obsessed with the Olympics my whole life. All my childhood birthday themes were Olympic themed. And so going to the Paralympics, being in the village, being in Paris, being with my family and having them see me compete, for most of them it was their first time ever seeing me compete, was just an incredible experience. And then the venue there in the Grand Palais was like fantastic. Having a crowd like that who is so into the fencing, especially being in France where people are very into fencing there, was such a unique experience. I know going into it, I was pretty nervous that, I wouldn't be able to hear or understand the referees because of the crowd, but I'm pretty sure that they were well briefed on that, and so definitely were able to raise their voice and it wasn't an issue. But it was just an incredible venue, and even off of the competition floor and the call room and the other rooms, being like behind the scenes in that amazing venue was incredible.
Yeah, your national teammate Ryan Rosell, when he was on the program, he talked about that venue as well, and just being so iconic, and in a place like Paris in France that just take fencing and celebrate it so much. It truly must have been that magical feeling for you. I want to get into your post-secondary studies, because not only are you an athlete, you're also a student. How has it been for you so far? Like, I know you talked about this being a bit of a down year in terms of competition and training, but in terms of balancing the academic side of things and the athletic side of things.
It's definitely been a challenge, but I'm somebody who likes to keep my plate full, and so having it full has definitely been good for me. So last year, I guess this summer, I finished my undergrad, and that was in nutrition, and the last year of the program was just internships, so it wasn't in class. And so during that year, I had to take summer of 2024 off for Paris and for training, which I don't regret that decision at all. And so it definitely extended my studies there a bit. And then I started grad school last week at the University of Ottawa. And so it's also been very busy, but I like being busy and I like pushing myself with learning and keeping myself well-rounded. So not just in sport, but also in school and work and other parts of my life.
On top of your academic and athletic pursuits, you're also coaching and giving back. How has that experience been coaching with the Ottawa Fencing Club?
It's been great. I think week to week, it's always so fun to see my athletes and see how they're progressing. But the biggest things that I always notice are then when we go to competitions, and the provincial championship was in May of this year. And so even not only me seeing the improvement in my athletes, but other coaches commenting, other athletes commenting of, wow, I never would have imagined that, this athlete would have been doing this a year ago, and now look at her, like, it's amazing to see. And so getting that feedback and just seeing the athletes come into themselves and grow their confidence is probably the most special part for me and what I'm the most proud of.
Why did you want to get into the coaching side of things specifically?
It was to start with a little bit selfish, maybe, where I was the only wheelchair fencer in Ottawa, and I wanted people to fence with, I wanted people to train with. But more than that, I wanted other people to have the opportunity to be introduced to the sport and learn to love the sport that I love so much. And so by being a coach and introducing others to the sport, I've really been able to see that. And again, just how their confidence grows is the most special thing for me.
I found this when I coached swimming, but I'm going to throw this at you. How have you seen yourself grow as a fencer since you started coaching?
I think it's definitely given me a very unique perspective where sometimes I'll be coaching and my athlete will ask me a question that I never even considered myself. And it really makes me think back and reflect on this sport that I thought I was a bit familiar with and just look at it from a completely different lens, which has really helped me think critically about it. But then also when I'm coaching and breaking down movements that now I do pretty fast and almost seem natural, but breaking them down slowly and into their components really helps me on my own to just perfect those. And going back to the basics never hurt anybody, and it's actually been really helping me improve.
The thing that's really kind of through line that I'm sensing from chatting with you, Trinity, is everything in from your athletic pursuits, your academic pursuits. It seems everything is quite methodical. Okay, well, not only do you have the passion for what you're doing, but it's also, there's an opportunity to excel in wheelchair fencing. Oh, it also happens to align with your goals, with going and pursuing sports management for your master's. Okay, it also interweaves with your athletic interest and background, and then also becoming an intern with the CPC also aligned with those other two factors. Like, it just seems like there's always been a very conscientious approach to the different things that you're taking on and you're adding into your life. Would you say that's the case?
I think so, and I also think now this season of my life, I've really been seeing things start to align and the pieces start to connect, where if we looked a year or two back, it might have seemed like I was doing a lot of different things, and really it was just I was doing what I was enjoying and what was challenging me, and now I found opportunities that have been able to melt them together, and they challenge me, and it is what I enjoy. So I think this season has just really been working out for me in that sense.
You mentioned it there with the work you're doing with your schooling and making sure finding financing in parasport. Is there any big dream or goal that you have with that sport administration, sport management side mixed in with your own athletic career at the end of the day?
I think right now there's not a huge end goal. Right now I'm really seeing this degree as a chance to explore my options, learn more. I've been really appreciating the opportunities in my research courses to just think critically and really change how I've thought about things. And so I'm trying to really enjoy the process of this and what I'm learning. and take the opportunity. We also have an internship in the course program at U Ottawa with this degree, so I'm really taking the opportunity to keep my mind open and see what's out there and what can happen going forward from this.
And Trinity, we always like to wrap up these interviews with a couple of the fun questions. We've done the serious, we've done the earnest, we got to know you as a person and as an athlete, but this is a way we can actually dive deep and have a little fun. So first off, do you have any like rituals or habits that you have either pre-competition or during a competition, maybe even pre-match, that you kind of do to get yourself into the zone or mentally prepared?
One thing that I do is, it's maybe a bit silly, but there is a method behind it and a reason for it, but I like to juggle a lot, and it started as a warm-up for fencing and just to work on hand-eye coordination, but now I find that I do it before a match, before a competition, not only to warm up, but also to give me something to do with my hands and distract my brain before I compete, and it really helps to calm me down and just get into the zone where I have something to focus on that's not the stress, that's not thinking about my competitors. And so I really do enjoy juggling as that little ritual before a match.
You've been able to travel around the world. You mentioned obviously Paris and France, Brazil, South Korea recently. Do you have a favorite food destination that you've been to that speaks to you?
Food is a little bit of a weird thing for me because I can't eat a lot orally. I get all my nutrition intravenously through something called total parenteral nutrition. So I just eat for fun, and there's only some foods that I can have. But I would say I really quite enjoyed South Korea recently, and trying food there was really something that I enjoyed, especially like lots of soups is something that I can have, and they really do their soups well. So I really enjoyed that.
And lastly, are there any venues or any locations you would love to fence in, or any countries you would love to do a competition in? I mean, being in Paris, that's probably going to be the pinnacle and very hard to beat, but are there any others out there that you're earmarked or you're hoping to be able to compete in one day?
Oh gosh, that's a great question. I love traveling and I love those fun destinations. I think it would be really cool to do a competition outside anywhere, kind of like in modern pentathlon, how they fence outside. I think that would be great to do on a beach somewhere with a great view, overlooking something pretty cool. I personally really love Scotland and think it would be so cool to just be on a cliffside there and fence. Would be pretty epic in my opinion.
So you're trying to recreate Highlander is what I'm gathering from you.
Pretty much, yeah. That's the vibe that I'm going for, definitely.
That's awesome. Trinity, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
And that was our conversation with Trinity Lowthian, Paralympic wheelchair fencer, master's researcher, all around just fantastic individual. Nathan, when I think of that conversation with Trinity, and I mentioned it during the conversation with her, it's all about taking steps in methodical and well thought out steps to position herself in a way to succeed. Yes, she chose her Paris sport based on, okay, what's the competition level like? Maybe there's an opportunity that I can excel in the sport. Oh, I also happen to really enjoy it and love the sport. That is a great benefit. Okay, I'm also going to pursue a master's degree that ties into my athletic achievements and my athletic pursuits. And then, I also have an opportunity to work with the CPC on an internship to further that connection. It just seems like everything has really aligned up well for Trinity, but it's also been very methodical to get to that point.
Yeah, you can really see the thought process of her planning out her sport, academics, and even her career, as you mentioned there, Alex. But one thing that really stood out to me was just her energy and passion and her love for what she's doing right now. And that really shined through for me on the camera. And she's someone who you can see is going to make a difference in that academic world, in the career, but also she has that potential to be a really amazing and incredible wheelchair fencer. And I think that her best days are definitely going to be ahead of her as she reached top 10 in the world at World Championships and top 5 in the overall standings after 2 competitions that she mentioned. So her potential is sky high at the moment.
Yeah, and to me, it's all about like juggling all those responsibilities and just those commitments from, work to being an athlete, to being a coach, all these things. But as we found out, she enjoys juggling, and it helps her calm her mind and keep her focused. So I guess that's just another benefit for her, that it's just you can manage all these different things happening at the same time, and they seem to be paying off for her. I'll be very interested as we continue along this quadrennial, as we get closer to LA. Do some of the different avenues that she's currently involved with, do they narrow a bit, or the focus become a bit more on preparing for the competition, or does she keep it all up? Because so far it's been serving her really well.
Yeah, I think for her, and there's so many other athletes we've had on the podcast and show that have that balance of that academic nature, that career nature, but also that sporting, and that busyness just really helps them well, and they're able to handle and able to balance and able to take that on. And as she mentioned, for Paris, she took that step away from her schooling, from her work, so just so she could dial in on there. It's going to be very curious to see how she takes about in the progress and road to LA in 2028.
Yeah, now a big part of the athletes, it's also donning those Team Canada jerseys. She had a great Team Canada hoodie. This is probably one of the only times, Nathan, I think you aren't wearing something Team Canada related. I want to take a moment to highlight that, celebrate that. You're not making me feel bad with all your Team Canada merch that you have. But there's also a discussion you want to have around jerseys themselves, because this is something you encountered in your daily life that you wanted to bring up.
Yeah, so I have a very interesting debate topic that I would love our guests and our listeners to comment on and sound their opinions off in the comments. But I was heading to the gym yesterday for my first training session of the year, and I saw a professional athlete. Not going to name them, not going to say what team they're on, but I saw them going into the gym wearing a custom jersey with their name on the back of a team of a sport that's completely separated from the sport that they're associated with, and in a different continent from where they're from or where they participate in sport. Now, I'm going to throw this to you, Alex, because I know Hamilton, the Ticats, are big for custom jerseys, especially with their names on the back. Where do you stand with having a custom jersey with your name on the back of it?
So I think no custom jersey with your name. I think it's not good. I'm a thumbs down for making a custom jersey with my own name on it. I think there's a certain age that you can get away with that. I think if you're younger, if you're a kid or a teenager, fine. But as an adult, it's kind of cringeworthy. I will say though, if it lines up well, you get a jersey with a player's name that matches your own. That's extra cool. That's 2 thumbs up. Like, that's double the commitment level, and I appreciate it from that. But if you're just slapping your own name on it, thumbs down. What about you, Nathan? Are you gonna get a Canucks jersey with Clement on there?
Oh, I couldn't do it. I was fortunate enough to get a Whitecaps jersey with my name on the back of it as a gift. And if it's a gift from the club, from the team, that is understandable. But there's a difference. You don't wear it out in public. You should not be donning it that way. But pretty well, like, as you said, you hit a certain age, you hit a certain, like, time in your life, you should not be having a custom jersey with your name on the back. But, and this goes into another debate too, is if, like, kind of as a cyclist, I have to wear my Canada jersey just when I'm out on the road because that is the team I'm representing. But if you're a pro athlete wearing your jersey, wearing your gear in day-to-day life, that's a bad look too. That's a rough look too. So it's one of those things that it's a very tricky dynamic.
Yeah, exactly. You gotta wear, if it's something with your name on it. If you're a hockey player that has your home jersey or whatever, you're not walking around with that. Most of the time, professional athletes also don't want to bring attention to themselves. But regardless, yeah, never wear your own jersey outside of competition. Don't have a custom jersey for yourself as an adult. But If you're gifted a jersey, it's okay. I would say, you know, I'll fight back a bit on you on the point you make where if it's gifted jersey you can't wear it. I will give you a bit of leeway, but other people are going to assume it's just a custom jersey that you made. Maybe that was the instance you saw. Maybe it was just a gifted jersey. We don't know. We don't have the answers, and we don't have the time to find out because this is the end of today's episode. So for Nathan, thank you at home for watching and listening, and we'll catch you next time.
Thanks for tuning in to Paris Sport Nation. Like and subscribe to the channel to follow us now.